I'll tell you what we'll do is we'll go and switch over to Jeff Breslauer. Jeff is our super fan. I want to thank Elliot S. Megan for joining us and my good buddy Brian K. Morris. And I do want to take this opportunity to say I appreciate so much folks like Elliot and folks like Jeff taking the time out of their schedule and joining us this weekend, because I contacted them like about a week ago and said, hey, we're doing a con. Do you want to join us? And they were very gracious enough to do this. And
I miss
like,
my super friends.
dude, we need to. We haven't done a con together in like 15 years. We need to get together for a convention.
Yeah.
When I come out to California, we're definitely gonna do lunch. So
Absolutely.
you got it. And I was gonna say, if you guys want to hang out, please feel free to. We'd love to have you guys stick around. And like I said, I know Jeff's background. Jeff has got some great stories to tell. And I'm going to introduce my buddy here, Jeff Breslauer. Jeff, as I said, you are the super fan who made good. You have worked as an actor. I'm going to let you brag and tell about some of the stuff that
Not
you've
very
done.
good at bragging.
Well, I will brag for you.
Yeah.
Worked with the Muppets. You
I've
have
done 2 projects with the Muppets, with Jim Henson and the Muppets. Muppets at Walt Disney World and the Muppets Take Manhattan.
You worked on Superboy. You actually worked on 2 episodes of Superboy, which you said was unique because they didn't like hiring the same actors over and over again, right?
Actually, I worked on 3 episodes of Superboy.
I didn't know about the 2.
1 in each season. I worked on season 2. I did voiceover work. And there was an episode in The Adventures of Superboy called Mr. and Mrs. Superboy. And I think it might have been the first or second time that Michael J. Pollard played Mr. Mxyzptlk.
Awesome.
And in that episode was also Richard Kiel, Jaws from the James Bond movies. And the 2 of them were battling each other. And I wound up doing voice work for that and general episodes in the second season. But there was one part of that particular episode where the 2 of them are squaring off, and this heavy-set guy with a little red baseball cap goes up to Richard Kiel and starts arguing with him and pointing his finger at his chest. And Richard Kiel, also being from the 5th dimension, he goes, and you are a big tomato. And poof, you see this big tomato with a little baseball cap on. And Kiel takes the tomato and he throws it. Now, while he's doing that, there is a car with its top down driving, and all of a sudden, we see the tomato coming down. Now, here's where my voice came in. I was hired because there was either something wrong with the sound when the actor was there, but I wound up looping for the actor in the convertible. And while I was doing that, the tomato is coming toward the car, and of course, my voice is going, oh, and all of a sudden, splat, and you see the convertible covered with this red goop. The windshield wiper is going, and for some reason, it popped into my head and it came out my mouth. The husband looks at the wife and says, oh yeah, you had to make me get a convertible. And they started in the sound room, they started laughing, and the guy comes out and he says, do that again? I said, yeah, sure. And if you listen carefully, they brought the vocal level down on it a little bit, but you could still hear it. Cool. That was in season 2. Season 3, I was in an episode that Gerard Christopher wrote called Wish for Armageddon. And there's one scene where Superboy is shaking hands with the President of the United States, played by Peter Palmer. famously known for playing Lil Abner in the movie. And what's so interesting is when I was on set watching Superboy shaking hands with Peter Palmer, who had this beautifully coiffed hair, and he was a big guy. It reminded me so much of the old comic book issue where Superman is shaking hands with Jack Kennedy. And my line came in where I'm playing, I guess, his press secretary. He comes in and he says, no, I was a Marine colonel. Mr. President, the cabinet is waiting for you. They're all ready to go, or something like that. And when I saw the episode, they had sliced that part out. So I don't appear. He's shaking hands with Superboy, and they cut to the next scene. Now, I had this angel on the series. He wanted me to be in this show for some reason. I don't know, but I was very grateful to him. He was one of the cinematographers and directors. His name was John Hunnick. And he just kept plugging for me to be in the series. And I had heard that it wasn't like The Adventures of Superman, where Billy Nelson and Ben Weldon would be two crooks. One would be the leader, and the other one would be the henchman. The next week, they would reverse, and they'll have different names. You know, they use the same stock actors throughout the series, and they always had different names. One would be the big boss. The other one would be the henchman. And in Superboy, once your face was seen and recognized, you either had that character come back or you wouldn't be coming back. So once you were a set character, that was it. So they cut me out of my 2 lines in Wish for Armageddon. So I was like, oh, well, what can you do? And then I got a message for season 4 that, well, since your face was not seen, we want you back for this episode called Paranoia. Excuse me, I have a tickle in my throat.
No problem. I was going to say, if you needed some water, please feel free to. I will say I do know about the episode you're going to be talking about, and I think you hit the jackpot with that one.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
This episode called Paranoia. And, great, they want me? Oh, good, I'm playing an alien cop. Oh, okay. So I'm in my dressing trailer, and they have what is called call sheets, where they tell you who the characters and who the actors are that are going to be there for that day, what scenes are going to be shot that day, who has to be on the set when and where and what props. Basically, it's a daily schedule. So I got my call sheet, and I'm looking at it. You had number 1, Gerard Christopher, Superboy. Number 2, Gerard Christopher, Clark Kent. Stacey Haydick, Lana Lang, and on, and I'm seeing Noel Neal and Jack Larson.
Yep.
And I went, are you kidding me? Because I was a huge fan of The Adventures of Superman.
Yeah.
Well, I got to the set, and there they are. And. So we met and shook hands, and I spent a lot of time, on sets. You spend a lot of time waiting, and there was this waiting area in the back, off camera view, and I would be there a lot with Noel and Jack. Heard that I would be talking to Jack with Noel sitting there about the adventures of Superman. And I would tell him stories because when I was living in New York, I went to HB Studios as an acting student. And one of my fellow students was a young lady named Sharon Kellogg. I found out later on that her father was John Kellogg, the guy who played Luke Maynard with Hugh Beaumont in the episode with the cracking with the walnuts and everything.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Well,
yeah.
he and I became friends, and I was talking to Jack about it because Jack was pretty much, he used to keep up with everybody who used to be on the series. He would keep up, he would always know whatever became of people like Ben Weldon, Sterling Holloway, all of those people, Billy Nelson, Billy Curtis, all of them. And I was telling him about John Kellogg. He goes, "Whatever happened to John Kellogg?" I said, "Well, we lost him in well, he's living in New York. We had since lost him in 2002, but at that time he was still alive." But we were just talking and talking up a storm. Now, one of the funniest little bits was that we were talking about how things changed, and Jack, who was dressed up to play Lou Lamont in that episode, he looks over at Noel and he goes, "Hey, Noel, have I changed much over the years?" And Noel looks at him, and you know how Noel is. She goes like this with her eyes, and she says, "Jack, you're wearing the same sweater vest and bow tie that you did 40 years ago. You haven't changed a bit." But and we wound up bonding that week, that during the 3 days that we shot. We became lifelong friends after that. So one of the greatest things that anybody ever did for me was slicing my Marine colonel out of season 3.
I was going to say, after we met at a convention in my hometown of Greensboro,
Mm-hmm.
back in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we became very good friends over that weekend. As soon as I found out you were a Superman Batman fan, I was like, okay, I got to know this guy.
Yeah.
And we've kept in touch. I remember you sending me some wonderful stuff through the mail, including a DVD of photos from Noel's birthday party, I believe.
The 85th, yeah.
Yeah, and I just thought, oh man, this is so cool. And I always thought it was great that you got a chance to actually get to meet them on the set like that. And I'm like, and again, when I say you're the super fan who
That's
made,
one of the reasons. I tell you, if it wasn't for getting to know Noel and Jack, and thanks to Larry Ward, Noel's manager and caregiver and biographer, you would not see me here. Noel and Larry were the ones who got me to come to Metropolis. And in 2008, they were also the ones who got me to go to the Memphis Film Festival, where I met some other people who became lifelong friends. One of them is the former Janine Perot. Now she's Janine Smiley. But Janine Perot was in the Superman episode Joey with the racehorse. So the connections just kept on mushrooming from that. And I always thought that the being cut out of season 3, and which I wound up getting a foreign residual for, as a matter of fact, so I guess I didn't have to appear, but being in Paranoia with Noel and Jack was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. It's because I got to meet everybody here.
Yeah. Well, again, like I said, for someone who was a fan of the original Superman series, I can imagine just working with them to begin with is one thing, but just being able to just hang around with them and just to be like you said, just being able to shoot the breeze with them behind the scenes and to be able to provide information about someone they'd worked with. I mean, that's always a wonderful thing when you can share information like that. And I'm trying to remember if it was you who told me the story about somebody on the set who didn't recognize them, didn't realize they'd been in the original series. Was it you? Was it you who told
That
me about?
I think that was the story about when Noel and I did Coast Con in Biloxi, Mississippi.
Okay.
Noel always used to wear that yellow jacket with the Superman shirt with the rhinestones around George's S.
Uh-huh.
And it was me, it was Noel, Larry, and a young lady named Deborah LeBlanc, who is a horror suspense writer. She basically is to Louisiana what Stephen King is to Maine. And it was 2007. And if you've ever been to Biloxi, Mississippi, there was a casino on the water, right there on the river. And we were going to have lunch there. And Noelle was wearing Noelle's outfit that she always wore. And we're waiting in line to go in to have lunch. Meanwhile, people were coming out, and these little old ladies would come by, and they would see Noelle, and they would stop and they would look at her outfit, and they would say, "That's a very cute outfit, honey. You go, girl. That's really wonderful." They all thought that Noelle was going in to gamble at the casino, and that this was her lucky outfit, and that she was going to go in to patronize the casino. They had no idea who she was and that she had legitimate reason for wearing that outfit. So, I was just looking at all of this and all of these people, and I was thinking, these people would have remembered Noelle shooting the episodes. They were certainly old enough. And to see them just looking at her like, "That's very nice, honey. You look adorable. It's fine. Yeah, you look good. I hope you win lots of money." And they're all going, and I'm just cracking up. I'm dying over there. It was so funny. It was just a lovely little slice of reality.
No, so I remember there was a story, and I can't remember if it was you telling me this or someone else. It was something about somebody. It may have been one of the episode of Lois and Clark that Jack did. It
Mm-hmm.
was something about somebody not recognizing who he was and didn't realize he had done Superman in the 50s. And the joke was, well, yeah, you see, he won this contest back in the day to be on Superman, and then they canceled the show, so now they're letting him
Oh,
do.
no, that was that. Oh, as a matter, the episode Paranoia?
Yes, yes,
I
yes.
know what story you're talking about now.
That's the one, yes.
I was the number one alien cop. I had a mute henchman with me. There was a guy who was bigger than me, and he had that square jaw that jutted out. He didn't have any lines. Young guy, but he was in the waiting area also, and he came by and he saw Noelle and Jack, and we were talking, and the guy goes up and he goes to Jack. He says, "Oh, and you guys are in the episode too?" And Jack says, "Yeah, yeah." And he says, "Well, where are you from?" We go, "Oh, we're from California." "No, we shot this in Florida." "Oh yeah, we're from California." And the guy says, "Really? You're from? They brought you all the way from California? That's very interesting. That's very nice that you were able to come all the way from California to be in the show. That's very nice." He had no idea who they were, not a clue. He thought that they just happened to come over and just be in the show. And aren't you? That was very nice. Aren't you lucky to be in the show? And finally, I looked at Jack and I said, "He had no idea who you were, did he?" And Jack looked at me and he goes, "You tell them." Because I was talking to Jack and Noel all of this time about the Adventures of Superman, to the point where Jack looked at me and he says, "How do you know all of this? You weren't there." I said, "Because I'm a big fan." I was asking him about Ben Weldon and all the other ones, Jonathan Hale and all the other people who were in the show. So it was just beautiful, and because of that, I wound up, Larry and Noel wound up getting me into the Memphis Film Festival, like I said. And from there, I met and became lifelong friends with Beverly Washburn,
Mhm.
who was in the Superman and the Mole Men. She was the little girl with the ball. And Gigi Perot, who was Janine's sister, who she was also a big time actress. I would see her. I would watch MeTV, and I would see Gigi on television all the time, on The Rifleman and Perry Mason and all of those shows. So I wound up, because of that one episode, Paranoia, vistas opened up for me. All of a sudden, I got to meet all of these amazing people that I used to watch growing up, even before I became an actor.
I was gonna say the universe has a plan for us, my friend, and like I said, your plan definitely came together. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's taking I'm taking a bit of a career pivot, but yeah, I'm doing a lot more writing now.
But I was gonna ask you. We kind of jumped right into the conversation. I did want to let folks know a little bit more about you, as far as what got you into acting. What got you the bug?
I was always interested in the entertainment industry. When I was, I think when I was 5 years old, I was the only guy who on my block who knew who Jack Klugman was. It was just something that I would do. You know, I would be sitting in front of the TV with my grandmother, and she would say, "Jeff, who's that actor?" And I would name him.
Yeah.
So you know, it was just something that was embedded in me from birth, I guess, and it just sort of blossomed later on. But when I started college, I was going to major in creative writing, and then I took some classes in broadcasting, and of course, in order to do the work behind the scenes, you had to be filming something, so some of the people in the class would be in front of the camera. And I wound up more often in front of the camera than behind the camera. So that's where that bug bit me. And I dabbled with writing all through the years, but it wasn't my main focus. It took a back seat to acting. And now, aside from the pandemic, but you know, I'm no youngster anymore. I found that the business has changed. The acting business has changed. Number one, it's more for the young people, unless if you're an older actor with a major name. And a lot of what's going on television, for example, is reality shows. So things have changed a bit. And I found that writing has kept my creativity going. It allows me not only to create one character, but I can create all of them. And I get a lot of fulfillment out of it. So that's what I am focusing on now. And of course, there's an old saying, if you want to succeed in A, concentrate on B. You know, it always works that way. So I'm not giving up acting, but I'm concentrating now more on the writing.
Well, I was gonna say, I know one of the things they've had some conversations about with the pandemic, that one of the things we're going to be seeing a big boom in the next coming months is going to be more animation, because it's a lot easier to do that
Mm-hmm.
separated and everything. And 'cause I know the sporting events are talking about having it where they'll have them, but they want to have audiences around, or they want to have spectators actually there to see it. So, like
Imagine, imagine going to an NFL game or seeing an NFL game on TV and you have canned applause.
yeah, it's a changing world. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens in the coming months and
Yeah,
probably the next year or so.
They're already doing that with NASCAR. It's
yeah.
really weird to see a NASCAR race and nobody in the stands.
Yeah. It's like, and seriously, what are the Recs for? I mean, what are the Recs for if there's not going to be an audience there? I mean, come on. Seriously.
Yeah.
I'm from the South. Recs and cars, it's all tied together.
Well, now in Florida also there was NASCAR was a big thing.
Yeah.
Daytona.
When I was going to say Florida, like I said, you were also being in Florida gave you an opportunity to be on another DC property, which was Swamp Thing.
Yeah, yeah. I wound up auditioning, and I wound up getting onto one of the episodes called "The Chains of Forever," and I played a 200-year-old man looking for the Fountain of Youth, which happened to be on Dr. Arcane's property in Homa. So
It's often what to happen in shows like this.
yeah, of course, yeah. But it's funny because they made me up to. There was before we shot. It was approaching the Christmas holiday, and this was, I think, what was it, 90? I think 1990. And I had to meet with the special effects makeup artist, a guy by the name of Jim Benke, who's out of California. And he sits me in this, like a barber chair, and he puts this, it's not plaster. It's some sort of a new kind of material for that time, to take a mold of my head and the top of my chest and also my arms. And he did that. I said, well, aren't you going to put straws in my nose so I could breathe? He goes, no, I'm going to carefully put it around the nostrils. You'll still be able to breathe, but if I put the straws in, it would distend it and it wouldn't look good. I said, okay. So I sat in the barber chair, and the whatever that concoction was, and he lathered it on me. It had a very minty smell to it, and I wound up falling asleep. You know, sometimes you worry about if you're going to be claustrophobic or anything like that. No, I fell asleep. And over the holidays, while I was enjoying myself, he was building my head and my shoulders and my chest and my arms with prosthetics, with latex and everything. So when I came back from the holidays and we were going to shoot, throughout the episode, I age. If it was an hour-long episode, I would have aged more slowly. But unfortunately, it's a 30-minute show. So at first, I look young. And I'm looking at my image right now, and I look at myself and I say, what the hell happened to you? Because I look a hell of a lot different as the young guy in Swamp Thing. Then the second stage, I look more like I do now. And then finally, as I'm going through the woods, he ages me. Now, when they put the age makeup on, and with the clothes, the first unit director, everybody kept talking louder to me. Can we get you anything? It's like, I'm standing right in front of you, you jerk. You don't have to talk so loud to me. I'm not an old man. I just play one on television. And one where there was this magazine article in the Orlando Airport magazine, and it shows me getting made up, and it mentions in the article how the cinematographer was looking at me through the camera lens and going, just shaking his head. He goes, "That's creepy. That is just so creepy." And it was actually kind of fun. And the funny thing is, took 3 days to shoot. It took an average of 3 days. Now, the late Dick Durock was Swamp Thing. He was in the suit, but he would only be in the suit on the last day of shooting. He was only able to take it one day because the makeup started to affect his skin.
Yeah.
Yeah. That will do that. So I got to talk to him beforehand. I was saying, this is going to be a first. I'm looking forward to being put into the old age makeup and everything. And Durock looked at me and he shook his head. He goes, "That'll get old real quickly." And, one of the things that I really, Dick Durock was a stuntman and an actor, and he was on shows like The Incredible Hulk. And he was that alternate Hulk.
Yes.
That was in
Yeah.
that show. But
So,
he,
yes.
Nice guy. And he was extremely professional, which is one of the things that I really appreciated. There was one scene, I have this big monologue about, do you believe in wizards? And I talk about how I got this potion called aqua vitae. I found out later it's like a Russian vodka. And I said that it was just about over, and now I have to look for more. And at which point, my wife, Laura Hicks, wonderful actress, she played my wife Celia, and I suddenly go to her and I said, "Oh, you told him too much. He knows all of this now." So I pull out a gun, threatening the guy who plays Scott in the show, Swamp Thing's confidant or human confidant or junior partner. And I'm pointing the gun at Scott, and all of a sudden Celia goes, "No," and the door flies open. Swampy comes in and pushes Scott out of the way, and I'm shooting Swampy in the finished product. We didn't shoot that the same time. I shot my end of the scene. The cameras were pointing at me, and I had the gun, and there was a plexiglass over the camera. I mean, it was blanks, but still, you think about the ghost of John Eric Hexum, with his mishap. So I shot that, and when Durock was getting into costume for Swamp Thing, he comes to me and he says, "Now I'd like to go over gun safety with you." And I said, "Well, you could, but we already shot my end of the scene." He went, "Oh, you did?" I said, "Yeah, I'm already done with that. We're only shooting your side." So the cameras were facing over my shoulder, pointing at Swamp Thing and Scott. But the idea of him taking the time to come up to me and say, "I want to talk about gun safety," I mean, that's the sign of a professional.
Yeah. Well, I got a chance to interview Dick. One of the magazines I wrote for, Monster News. We did a little interview with him.
Mm-hmm.
And very nice fellow, very, very super nice guy, sweet as could be. And I remember reading after the fact that with the Swamp Thing movie, Ray Wise, who played Alec Holland, was originally going to be playing Swamp Thing also. And then the producers looked at Dick in the costume and said, "He looks better than Ray does." And it's like, "Ray, do you mind if he plays Swamp Thing?" And Ray's like, "I don't have to wear the costume. Sure, go ahead. I'm cool with that." But that just snowballed. It's like lucky place, lucky time, because he got to do the sequel and then the TV series. And I remember him talking about going to conventions and being comic book fans, and there were like all these huge fans of Swamp Thing, and people just loved the movies, loved the TV show. And he was just, it's like you hear about people that are just jerks, and you wonder why did they get successful, and you hear about someone like Dick, and it's like this is a guy who deserves all the success in the world because he's such a super nice guy. And
Yeah.
And like I said, that story about wanting to talk with you about that. Plus too, I hear these horror stories about TV shows where they're like, okay, now so and so is the lead star, so don't make eye contact with them, don't talk to them. That's their craft service table. Don't go near it. And
Yeah.
have somebody come up and be like that, and just it's a good story. You want to hear those kind of stories about the guys who play your heroes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
You
wonderful.
always wonder if you're going to meet the people that you admire, that you watch on television or in the movies. You wonder if they're going to live up to your ideal of the way you see them. I was very fortunate.
Yeah.
I could think of a number of people that I met over the years that I used to watch when I was a kid. And I would say about 98% of them turned out to be nice people in real life. And the funny thing is, one of the majority of the nice people that you meet who are actors, they used to play the villains.
Yeah.
The villains are some of the nicest people in the world in real life.
Oh, I know. It was like the old stories about Peter Cushing. There would be people that were talking about how evil he was as Frankenstein in the Hammer films. And I know, I remember reading these stories about these actresses, these young actresses who were in their 20s. They wear these revealing costumes. And Peter Cushing would just be like, I've got to go call my wife. And, my wife and I were doing dinner tonight. And they were just sitting around going, it's so sweet that he was in love with his wife up until even after she died. He was still married to his wife, and
Yeah.
that's the kind of stories you want to hear, and that's the kind of stuff that I love hearing about, and I know the people that have joined us today love to hear about. So that's awesome.
For sure. Yeah.
Um, like I said, you also got a chance to be in the Punisher film. You were telling me about that, and
Well, I did not get any sort of credit. My part in the Punisher movie, this is the one with Thomas Jane and John Travolta. I was Will Patton's stand-in double.
uh-huh.
I wound up getting cast in it. This was while they were already shooting. So I didn't audition or anything like that. So I wound up, I had a beard like I do now, and they wound up trimming my beard to look like Will Patton's beard. Will played Travolta's best friend. I don't know if you remember in the movie, he winds up offing him.
Yes.
Spoiler alert. And I was pretty much given direction and doing various things to with Will's part, while Will was either in his trailer or doing some other things, doing some pickups or whatever. And whenever Will would come in to work on the scene that I was working on, I would bring him up to date on what direction I got from the director. So I wound up playing his part, but not on camera, not on film.
Well, didn't you tell me that the scene where they like give rid of the body, that was you, where you didn't see the face?
Yeah, when Laura Harring, who played Travolta's wife, asks where Will's character is, Travolta sort of gestures over there, and you look at this rolled up rug with 2 feet sticking out. Well, that was me in the rug.
I was gonna say we only saw your feet, but at least it was a soulful part, so
Yeah, well, I had this urge to mimic Lucy Ricardo and put my name on the soles of the feet, I did do something real silly when they finally took me out of the rolled up carpet. I did say, so I guess I'm wrapped. And, and they sort of looked at me and they shook their heads.
I'd been tempted.
But no,
to I think
it was a fun scene.
I was going to say, I think I would have been tempted to go to Travolta and say, I read the end of the script and you're not staying alive at the end of the script. So I pun. I'm sorry.
Yeah. He was very nice to the fans. There were a number of people who, because we shot at various houses in the Tampa area, and the much larger houses where, of course, there were a lot of the neighborhood people watching the filming going on. There were the barricades, and they couldn't go. And he would come up to the fans, and he was very nice and a really down-to-earth, nice guy. I was very impressed.
Again, Travolta's one of those guys I've heard good stories about. I think it's because he's had some rough turns in his career and everything. I think he really appreciates the opportunities he's been given too.
Yeah,
so
he knows what it's like not to get work.
Yeah.
Between Welcome Back, Kotter and Pulp Fiction, he had a long dry period there.
Yeah. Like I said, I remember we had like you go from like Saturday Night Fever, Grease, to some of the films in the 80s. Yeah. I remember when he made kind of his first comeback with Look Who's Talking with Kirstie Alley.
Right.
Bruce Willis.
Mm-hmm.
Even then, Bruce Willis is getting the lead billing because he's Bruce Willis and doing the voice of the baby.
Bruce Willis. Yeah.
I was going to say I'm getting a little bit of a lag at this end. I don't know if you guys are getting that also. It may be my connection. So
Getting it with you. I'm getting it with you a little bit, Dan.
Okay. I didn't
There's
know
a little bit of a lag. You're freezing everyone.
It may be the connection with the meeting and all. It's working a little bit better now. So I was going to say we're wanting to try to give us a little bit of time. I don't know if they've got anything planned coming up for 4:00 or not. I would advise folks to check the Facebook page. We'll have a link to whatever's coming up next. I do know they've got an event coming up at 5:00. If there's something at 4, this is a good opportunity to take a break and get some lunch or do a bathroom break or whatever you want to do. But before we leave, though, Jeff, I did want to mention also, besides doing Superboy, besides doing Swamp Thing, besides doing Punisher, you are also, if anyone has ever been to Six Flags, you are the voice of the Joker for the Six Flags parks.
Yeah, that was another one. I got that. I auditioned for 3 parts. When I was in Florida, my voiceover agent sent me, they were going to do the Batman stunt shows. I said, okay, and they had me read for 3 parts. One was Robin, which didn't go over well. My voice was too mature for that. Went to a friend of mine at the time, a guy named Brian Bazala, who has a wonderful, wonderful tenor voice. He used to do a lot of musicals. I think he still does. But he was the perfect Robin. He had a nice high voice. Then I was up for the Riddler, which would have been a little bit to my heart because of having worked with Frank Gorshin. But that went to someone else. I forget the guy's name. And then they had me voice the Joker. Now, when I did that audition, I was pretty much, at that time, the animated series was in full force. So, of course, Mark Hamill, his version of the Joker's voice was the Joker's voice. And the producer and the Six Flags person, they both agreed with me that it would be a good idea to start off with a version of Mark Hamill's Joker, but add me to it. So this way, the audience in this huge arena are seeing stunt people dressed up as the characters, and lip syncing to a pre-recorded track. Now, they're not going to necessarily, if they hear a strange voice, they might not know exactly who's talking. So they need something that's a little bit familiar so that they know who's talking, so they don't have to spend a few seconds trying to figure out whose line is it. Meanwhile, the story is going on. So I started out with Mark Hamill's. I did my take on Mark Hamill's Joker, but added me to it. So when I would do something, for example, in the Ohio show where Mr. Freeze and the Joker are having a disagreement about how to get rid of Batman and Robin, the Joker said something like, "Why must it always be something cold, Freeze? Why can't it be something hot for a change, like acid?" I would do the laugh.
Yeah.
And I got a call from my voice agent saying, "You got the Joker." And I wound up, my buddy Frank Gorshin was doing a play. He was doing, what was it? I forget which play he was it Say Goodnight Gracie? I think it might have been the first incarnation of Say Goodnight Gracie. He did a one-man show playing George Burns.
Yes. Actually,
And
I have to review that for a paper I worked for. He was magnificent.
you know who wrote that play?
I believe so, yes. Name escapes me. I'm sorry.
Rupert Holmes.
Yes.
Rupert Holmes is known for us baby boomers as the writer and performer of "Yes, I Like Pina Coladas and Getting Caught in the Rain." Well, the first version of that was in Florida, I think in Vero Beach. And I went to see it. I saw all the incarnations of him doing that show. And when I saw him backstage, I gave him the news that I was going to be the Joker, the voice of the Joker at Six Flags. And he was all excited. He goes, "Yeah, the Joker and the Riddler together." And it was nice. And one of the a fond memory I have right after I got that, because I was walking on cloud nine when I got the Joker, the voice of the Joker at Six Flags across America. And I went to MegaCon, I think, in Florida. I had a table, and I wound up meeting two Star Wars people who were sitting next to each other. One was Kenny Baker, who was, and the other one was a guy named Bill Hootkins.
Mhm.
Bill was Jack Porkins.
Yep.
In A New Hope. And I got to, when I was talking to Bill, he was also Lieutenant Eckhart in the first Batman movie.
Yes.
Christ Knox. Yeah. Well, he signed, he was all excited about me being the voice of the Joker. He goes, "Oh, I got to tell my friend Jack about that. He's going to be excited about that," meaning Jack Nicholson. But he signed his Lieutenant Eckhart to Jeff. Think about the future. You know?
There you go.
Well, years later, I've been doing the voice of the Joker for several years, and we were doing the New Jersey show, which I'm not very pleased with, but hey, it's their sandbox. They brought me, this is a Batman stunt show, a DC character. They brought me into Stark Studios in Orlando, Florida. And I'm thinking to myself, Stark Studios. That guy is everywhere. And
Got money, you spread it around, man.
I guess so, yeah. So they usually, when you're doing a voiceover, they put you in what is like a little phone booth with the glass in front of you and the music stand with the script, and you get the headphones, and you talk to the TD person, they punch the board. And this time they brought me into this huge room, which was, it looked like the size of a basketball court. And right in the middle of it was the music stand with the headphones and the script. And I went over there and I said, okay. And they're talking to me through the TD board and they say, okay, Jeff, for this show, we want to do something different. We don't want Cesar Romero, Jack Nicholson, or Mark Hamill. We want the voice to sound more like you. So I looked at them through the glass and I said, you know, it's interesting you say that, because I come into this room and the first thing I thought of was, nice place you got here. Lots of space. And they're looking at me as like, don't do that. No, don't say that. He wouldn't like it. No, so but no, that's one of my least favorite shows. But I think my voice is still there. Ever since Heath Ledger played the Joker in The Dark Knight, the character pivoted from comic booky to more reality. And of course, now that Joaquin Phoenix, both Heath Ledger and Joaquin Phoenix won Oscars for their performances as a more real version of the character, maybe my voice is there or maybe it isn't. You know, I have never been to a Six Flags. My voice works there, but I've never been there.
Still, it's just to be able to play such an iconic character like that. That is pretty amazing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you think about commercials, TV shows, movies. I mean, there's only just so many people that officially have played this character for incarnation. So it's pretty amazing. And
Sure.
you were mentioning about being friends with Frank Gorshin. And I mean, I remember
Mhm.
that's one of the things we first bonded about, was because I remember seeing one of the photos you had on your table at the con that I met you at, and it was a nice shot of you and Frank together in play. And I just thought that was
Oh, yeah.
and
He was one of those people that really exceeded my expectations. He's one of those, I met one of my heroes and he was even better in person.
like I said, I got a chance to review Say Goodnight Gracie when I was working for a paper back in 2005, and I remember writing my biggest disappointment about it was I wanted to interview him, and it was one of those things where it was like, well, we can't get the review in until after the paper play's done, and there's no time to do an interview beforehand, so they want to do it to advance, you know, get advance publicity and all. So they're like, well, we can't really do that. It wasn't Frank, it was the theater. The theater didn't want to set it up. And I remember writing in my review that I loved Frank Gorshin as a kid. And I was disappointed I didn't get a chance to see him on stage, because he was George Burns the entire time. There was never one time you thought, okay, that's Frank Gorshin doing George Burns. It's like, that's George Burns. That's brilliant. Mimic.
Did you know that Frank never met George Burns?
Really?
Never met him.
He had the voice and the manner.
Rich Little met him, but Frank never met George Burns. And yet he nailed him.
He did. And that was one of the things I remember reading the day that he passed away. The day Cesar Romero passed away, and Burgess Meredith, Adam West, all of them, when they passed, I was just like, those are the days I remember just being bummed, because it's like that's a little bit of your childhood just is gone forever.
Yeah, yeah. And he was a good friend of mine for the last 10 years of his life, because we did Breaking Legs in 1995, and then in 96 we took it to San Diego, and he passed away in 2005.
I think the last thing I
But
saw.
what was it, a CSI?
Oh, I was gonna say I think one of the last things I remember seeing him in was the Back to the Batcave that he did, the special.
Oh, Return to the Batcave, yeah.
Which I thought was really, really, it's interesting for folks who've never seen it. It's basically an account of Adam West and Burt Ward when they were doing the Batman series in the '60s. And I still remember there was a wonderful scene where Adam West gets very wistful, and it's that wonderful little moment when you stop and think to yourself, Adam West really could act. This guy really, you forget he really was a hell of an actor. It's just a wonderful little scene where he's just got that look on his face, and it's just sort of like this bittersweet moment in the film, and it's just really wonderful. And then he goes, of course, he's back to being the Adam West that everybody knows and everybody loves. But no, like I said, I remember, like I said, when we got a first chance to meet and talk, and just your exploits. Again, I am in awe of them, because, like I said, you've met some wonderful folks. You've had some great opportunities, and I'm grateful that you got a chance to share some stories with our folks today. We appreciate that. I was going to say we're coming up on 4 o'clock. I don't know if they've got anything rescheduled or not. I'm going to find out. But Jeff, I wanted to thank you again for joining us this weekend. You'll be joining us for the panel tomorrow about why we need Superman in the world. I'm looking forward to that also.
Me too.
The only thing I'm looking forward more to is when we can actually do a convention together in person.
Wouldn't that be something? I would love that.
You got it, my friend. Well, like I said, Jeff, thank you again for joining us. Again, honor and a pleasure always, my friend. It's always great talking to you. You take care.
Absolutely. Same here, Dan. And it's good to see everybody here too.
Yes.
Super Abby.